There's also some talk. I was monitoring this all day yesterday, Danny, as I was posting up here in Milwaukee to watch all the NFL games, of Deebo Samuel's status, where he is questionable. I don't know if they're calling this a game-time decision or how they're phrasing it. I don't actually think there's any chance he misses this game. Do you? I mean, to me, this feels like they are monitoring his practice load, as they do with Laramie Tunsil, as they do with Zach Ertz. I mean, there's never been seemingly a team that forces guys to practice at a lower rate than this group, and I have no problem with that. But I think that's primarily what's happening here. You don't have McLaurin, you don't have Noah Brown, so you're being extra careful with Deebo, and you can list them questionable and say, let's just make sure everything's fine before the game and everything checks out okay. But I would be shocked if he didn't go. And if he didn't go, by the way, then I feel differently about the whole game, because now who are your actual weapons to do anything in the passing game? But I view that as a very, very slim chance. To me, not only will he play, he will look like Deebo Samuel. He will look nothing like a guy who's been hindered this week at practice.
So it always concerns me when there's, any kind of injury or any kind of limitation other than the normal Dan Quinn rest day for anybody that's been in the league for more than an hour and a half. But the fact is, he is banged up, and he's got a history of being banged up, right? So if this is a guy that plays 17 games per year and is always himself, and the reason he was available and fell out of favor coming from San Francisco was he had an injury, he had pneumonia, wasn't quite in shape, wasn't himself, and wasn't the guy that was this unique weapon wrecking ball star, quite frankly. One of the uncoverable players in the league who can beat you 17,000 different ways. He was available for not that much, for a 5th round pick, to come over here and be the engine for this offense. So because it's him, because of his import, I've got some concern on the meter if we're doing the meter, but it's not high. It's probably really close to where you are. I expect him to play, and I expect him to be himself. But still, it's got me thinking not just for tonight, but the rest of the year, right? Where he's become indispensable. What happens if and when he gets banged up, which he has pretty much every year for the last half decade?
Well, that's a reality. I mean, there's no denying that this guy is such a violent physical player with the football. I go back to the home game against the Raiders a few weeks ago, if you remember, when he was mic'd up. And he had a chance to get out of bounds with a first down, and he basically chose to stay in bounds and turn it upfield and to try to run someone over. And there was a big, big collision. And then he's mic'd up after the game, and someone was basically saying, like, Deebo, don't do that. Like, just get out of bounds. He's like, oh, no, you don't know me very well. Like, that, I don't just get out of bounds. There's no just get out of bounds with me. That's how he plays the game. That's how he lives. The way he lives is not for everybody, to quote Joe Witt. He seeks out that contact. But what comes with that, Danny? He's constantly, always going to be nicked and banged up and questionable and probable, and he's always going to have that letter next to his name in fantasy football. That's just the player he is. So, yeah, I agree with you. There maybe is some, over the long haul here, some sustainability questions, especially with the fact that he's playing more. He's getting the football more. He's being targeted more often than he was in San Fran. It's not like they're, thinking about week 16 and 17 right now with the heavy usage, because McLaurin and Noah Brown being out, his importance has gone up, and they're turning up the heat on using Deebo a little bit. So that's probably fair. And maybe I'm not considering enough the possibility either, Danny, that Deebo Samuel in a game tonight, while playing, it, for me, seems like, complete lock. Maybe you aren't 100%, or maybe you do re-aggravate or tweak something. And I'm not really thinking about that part. Like, yeah, he's going to be out there. Yeah, he's going to play. But if he's favoring it a little bit, or if something small happens, is he more at risk to miss a series or two than someone else based on whatever treatment he was getting all week? I guess that's possible. But you said something important. He is indispensable. I mean, he is right now, outside of Jaden Daniels. And I still think even though Mariota played really well for 2 weeks, Daniels, because of the nature of the position and the ceiling when he's at his best, is their most valuable, irreplaceable commodity. Who else on this team would you say, non-Daniels division, is more important than Deebo Samuel right now? Especially in a world without McLaurin and Noah Brown.
And that's what it is. It's the context, right? If you had McLaurin and Brown, and Austin Eckler was still healthy, you go, all right, I'll get away with not having Deebo for a week because they did it all last year and were pretty good, especially for 90% of the season or whatever when Daniels didn't have broken ribs. So you could get away with it, and you could even do pretty well. But for an extended period of time, especially without those guys, no way. I mean, you just go back to the Chargers game for proof positive. Of the roughly 20 targets, half of them went to Deebo. That's not hyperbolic. Half of the catches on the game were Deebo. Everyone else had a 1 or maybe a 2 next to them. There's no one else at this point. So, yeah, he is absolutely indispensable. A, for his production. B, for the idea of his production. Again, I am such a huge subscriber to this. The threat of something is almost as important as the actual something, right? Obviously, the yards and touchdowns and catches and things are paramount, but defenses are very aware of that, right? When I coach my 7 and 8 year olds, I always have to tell them, hey, look where the two fast kids are. If they're looking to get them the ball, it's that simple. That concept is not foreign, especially at the professional level. Everybody knows where that dude is lining up and doing, and half the time it's eye candy, and the times it's not, he's getting the football.
He is being targeted right now on 30% of their passing attempts, which is top 5 at the wide receiver position in the entire NFL. To just give you an idea of his significance to the offense and his importance as we get into play tonight. I do feel really good about this game, though, and as kind of is always the case, frankly, Danny, I feel a lot better about Washington's offense in this matchup with the Bears' defense, which has been putrid, than I do Washington's defense against the Ben Johnson-led Bears offense. But there's no reason their defense shouldn't be able to make a play or two either. Some of what's going their way here, as far as the Bears' offense being on the field, they're going to be breaking in an undrafted free agent left tackle in this game. You seen this?
Yes.
They're starting a UDFA at left tackle. I mean, if that doesn't get your mouth watering, if you're Von Miller and Dorrance Armstrong, I don't know what will. And the Bears just haven't been able to run the ball at all. Now, they're coming off of a bye, so that's beneficial. They're more rested, clearly. And that extra week to prepare maybe allowed them to self-scout and figure some things out in the running game. But if you notice, the betting line is actually growing in Washington's favor as we get closer and closer. I saw it at 3.5 at one point, look ahead. Then it was 4.5. Now it's 5.5 that they're favored by, and they're laying at home tonight. There is an expectation with the people that have all the inside information that as we get closer to kickoff, the Commanders are getting more and more favorable here. And I kind of feel that. I think they're going to be able to move the ball seemingly with ease, even without McLaurin and Noah Brown. And it's funny, with all the injuries they've had on offense, have you ever once gone into a game yet where you're like, they just don't have enough weapons. I don't like this offense. Maybe it's partially their matchups, but with the Raiders, week by week here, when Mariota's playing in Atlanta, you're like, their offense will be fine. That's a great testament to Cliff Kingsbury.
I think so, too. Yeah, that's to me, he's the constant. He's the consistent, right? It's been a rotating cast of characters. Some, you don't know if a guy can handle the full workload in JCM's case, and now maybe we feel like he can. Other times it's been McLaurin's injury. Other times it's been the quarterback changes. It hasn't mattered. They have been productive relatively on offense, and they haven't hit on all cylinders yet, and they're still towards the top of the league in most categories. So that's the area you feel good about. A design, putting guys in good spots, et cetera, being able to move the football against a Bears defense that, coming off their bye week, had a chance to self-scout. You're going to see some different stuff. So even if your initial, and this is where this to me is where coaches make their money. Yeah, that first 15 script where we know you know us, let's roll out the chess pieces and see who does better early on. It's those in-game, on-the-fly. All right, you know what they're doing now? We didn't know they would do this because they hadn't shown it yet. Well, now we know. Do we have a counter for it? Can we execute that? Can we get stuff in on time? Can we not panic? Are we going to be stubborn and stick to some plan that we're sure is going to work at some point? Think of that New Orleans game last year, right, where they decided we can run Brian Robinson this game, despite all the evidence that said they couldn't. Whatever it was, 20 carries for 40 yards, and 11 of them came on a lateral that was really a pass. They couldn't run the ball at all, but they were sure that they could, and they escaped with their lives in that game. To me, where coaches really earn it is when the plan goes awry, when you get punched in the mouth. So I expect Chicago to probably try some different stuff, because if you're just beating your head against the wall going, eventually we'll stop the run, it won't be the worst thing of all time. We'll just keep doing what we're doing, which lets over 6 yards per carry against opposing offenses. You'd think they might try a few different things, so what are you going to do to counterpunch that?
If they could get out to a lead, and Chicago can't really run it as we talked about, but then you make them one-dimensional in the sense that you know what's coming and you can adjust and kind of call plays accordingly if you're Joe Witt. That's where I think you can force Caleb Williams into some bad decisions. Because oddly enough, for all of the off-target throws last year and to some extent this year, he's improved in that area. His interception totals have been pretty low. I mean, he and Jaden Daniels are 2 of 5 quarterbacks, 20 games into their career ever, with over 25 touchdowns and 10 or fewer picks. But he will put the ball in harm's way on obvious passing downs. If you can pressure him and get him off his mark and get him moving around and kind of off schedule where he is so dangerous so many lethal plays. He also makes some boneheaded plays as well. But that's going to be the key, I think, early is just getting on the board and then having the Bears chase this game a little bit. I worry about Rome Odunze, who scored a touchdown in all 4 of Chicago's games.
He is good,
He's
man.
on an 85-catch pace for like 1,200 yards. He's basically having a good Terry McLaurin season that we've gotten used to over the last 6 years here. Is like a top half of the league, number 1 wide receiver. I'm not really sure what their plan's going to be to defend him. We'll talk about that coming up at 3 o'clock next hour. But that's one of the big things I am worried about in this game. And something that all of our listeners should be worried about in this game is a bet that we have here in studio. It's not even really a bet as much as a challenge, or basically I annoy you guys by saying the name Ben Johnson, so you're trying to take it away from me. A bet would mean that we are both confident on our sides of it. But, Danny, let the people know what's at stake tonight, Ben Johnson alert style, as we get ready for Monday Night Football.
So
Ben Johnson alert.
The alert's gotta go.
Ben Johnson alert.
So this is huge. Grant Over talks about Ben Johnson before the show, during the show, after the show, in texts. They'll hand it off for 2.5 yards, and it's the greatest run in the history of mankind, and everybody has to hear about it all the time.
Oh, come on.
And it's too much. So our listener, Josh Upper Marlboro, came up with the idea that if they don't get the paltry total of 350 yards, which more than a dozen teams average and Washington gives up on a weekly basis, because their secondary is terrible and everybody can throw on them. If they don't give up 350 yards, Grant has to refer to him in some other kind of nomenclature. The coach from Chicago, or the guy that said Washington's a bunch of basketball guys, or the immature twerp that canceled his interview while the team was on the plane to go interview him. The guy that probably shouldn't be a head coach that's in the Josh McDaniel tier. He can't say his name anymore. If he goes over, which, again, should happen and would happen most nights, then I guess it's free reign. That's the flip side of it is I'm not really sure. Like, do you get to do it extra? You know what I mean? Because you were going to do it as much as you want. That's what I don't know.
No, that's what I'm saying. There is no bet. It's basically just you guys all decided and ganged up against me as a challenge that if it happens, then I don't get to do it anymore. There's no real benefit for me. It's
there's no upside for you.
lopsided.
Yeah, it's like that Chris Russell. Like, if they complete a forward pass, I'll walk to Kentucky kind of bet. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I've just been basically challenged because you guys are annoyed by this. Now, I will say I don't think they'll get to 350 because it isn't necessarily a paltry total. It is very difficult, right? You're talking about fringe top 10 in the league average, and with kick returns as long as they are now and field goal kickers kicking from where they do now, yards per game are way down in the National Football League just generally. And as it were, like you get to 350 10 years ago, that was pretty common. It just doesn't happen in as many games now. I wanted to go yards per play, but we're fine. We're fine. This is going to be fun. Everyone's going to have a good time. Hopefully the Commanders win. Hopefully the Bears get to 351 yards so that I can say Ben Johnson's name a bunch of times moving forward with each trick play, with each really impressive design and scheme that he puts together for Chicago as one of my favorite play designers. But yeah, I guess just the fact that I appreciate good offense and good offensive design is too much for some people, Danny, that they get very annoyed by the Ben Johnson alert that Darius has ready all day long.
Ben Johnson alert. Ben Johnson alert.
And to be clear, for the remainder of the campaign, until the playoffs start, you will not hear that alert again if they go 349 or fewer today.
349 a hook, baby. Here we go.
So the countdown will be on.
I was sitting there pumping my fist during big Chicago kick returns. My wife will be baffled. Like, why are you? They got great field position. I'm like, oh, I know they do.